Hi. In today's lesson, we're going to do some more work with graphs to stories. So let's jump right in. So this worksheet is titled The Stories of Graphs. Let's read through this information. One sunny morning at 8 a.m., Dave set off from his home. He'd had enough of his video games and wanted some fresh air. The sun was shining, so he decided to run to the local park. He traveled at 10 kilometers an hour, which he was pretty happy with. His training was obviously paying off. When he got to the park, he spotted a nice bench, so he sat down and rested for an hour. By then he realized he was late to meet Kevin, so he took a bus for the first 5 kilometers of his journey and then walked the next 5 kilometers to the cafe. He got there just in time at 12:45 p.m. Dave and Kevin chatted in the cafe for just over an hour, enjoying their ice creams. By then, Dave was exhausted, so he took a taxi home. It was a bit slow, but it still traveled at 20 kilometers an hour, much faster than he could have walked. Okay, and then you see there's a graph. So the graph tells us a story, in this case, the story of a journey. So the first thing we're going to do is draw arrows to show which bits of the story connect to each paragraph. So if I go back and look at the very first paragraph, it says, one morning at 8 a.m., Dave set off from his home. And then it says the sun was shining, so he decided to run to the local park. So this part goes right here. This is showing him that first little section. I'll put a 1 there and a 1 here. That's going to be him running at about 10 kilometers an hour. My second paragraph here refers to him sitting on the bench. So his distance is going to stay the same while time increases, right? So this is going to be him sitting on the bench. By then he realized he was late, so he took a bus for the first 5 kilometers and then walked the next 5. So this whole section, there's like 2 pieces there, right? So there's a part where he's on the bus, and then there is a part where he is walking in that section number 3. Then Dave and Kevin chatted in the cafe, so the distance is going to stay the same. This is section 4, which goes with paragraph number 4. And then at the last part, the last paragraph is going to be him taking the taxi to go home. So his distance home is decreasing. He's getting closer and closer to home. Okay, so that's the first section. How can you tell when Dave stopped? Just by looking at the graph. So the sections where the line is horizontal would indicate that he has stopped. So the horizontal sections. Okay, and how can you work out the speed Dave traveled for different parts of his journey? So if I wanted to find the speed of, say, this section right here, I could find 2 points that are on that section and use my slope formula, or drawing my slope triangle. Same thing here. I can make a little slope triangle here or use my slope formula. And I could do it for this section. Actually, I could do it for every single section of the graph. Everywhere where you have a straight line, then this whole graph is made up of several pieces of straight lines. So I could find the slope. I could use a slope triangle for each of those if necessary. So, so how can we work it out? So draw a slope triangle for each straight line segment. How could you make a guess about how he was traveling for different parts of his journey? Example, if he was walking, running, taking the bus, or a taxi. So we could make a guess. We know that running is going to get him further, faster than walking would be. So running would be steeper, for example, than walking, or riding the bus would be steeper than walking because riding a bus is going to travel faster than if a person is walking. So you could tell based upon the steepness of each section. So how could you look? You can determine the method of travel by looking at the steepness of each line segment. And then how can you tell when he starts heading back home? Well, since it's a distance time graph, when the distance starts decreasing, that would indicate that he's headed back towards his house. So in section 5, that's a decreasing section, right? So that means he's heading back towards his home. So how can you tell when he starts heading back home? When the distance starts, when the distance So when the distance starts decreasing, it means he's heading home. Okay, so now it's going to be your turn. So I want you to turn the page. I want you to do, there's 2 graphs. So I want you to do the next 2 graphs. And so the directions are the same, just what could the story be? So come up with a story based on those 2 graphs. All right, good luck. Okay, so now that you've had an opportunity to make up a couple of stories on your own. So your story may not be identical to my story, but this is the one that I've come up with, and notice that I included the different sections and I've labeled them as such when I did my story. That way it would be very easy to see which part goes with which. It's really important to note that this time is measured in hours. So make sure that you're paying attention to that when you were writing your story. So pause the video and read over my information and see if it makes sense, and then look at what you wrote for your story and see if your story is similar enough. Okay, great. And then here's my second story. Let's zoom out. There we go. There's all of it. Again, I've labeled each section. I saw that there were 7 sections, and so I've got 7 steps. Again, this time, the time is measured in seconds. So make sure that when you wrote your story, you were taking that into account. So this time is passing only over a 10-second period. So when I wrote my story, I thought about a cat chasing a light. Okay, so pause the video and read through my story and then see if the story that you've come up with is similar enough to the one that I've come up with. That would also model the situation. Okay, great. If you have questions about any of these problems, any of these 2 graphs, or what I've written down, or if you just need help figuring out how to come up with a story, make sure to contact your teacher. So once you've got your 2 stories written down and this sheet filled out, go ahead and submit it, and then you can work on your independent practice. Good luck.